Welcome to the Divine Channel. I'm Siobhan, and on this channel, we bring through messages from Spirit direct to you. And today, I've got a bunch of synchronicities that have been coming through and that Spirit has guided me to share with you today. The first one is cinnamon. Cinnamon. Seemingly innocuous, random household spice. And I just keep seeing synchronicities and symbolism around cinnamon. So I was kind of like feeling into what this message was meaning. And the first thing that came to mind for me was nostalgia, because I have an association with cinnamon from childhood. There was other flavors that were coming up as well, which were references from childhood. So it wasn't just that cinnamon called that forth for me in terms of my sensory memory. Sensory memory. That's okay. So it's beyond nostalgia. It's how senses can store memory, smell, and taste. Olfactory, thank you. Yeah, olfactory senses are able to store memory more vividly. Actually, I was going to say strongly. They said the word is vividly. The other thing that I was getting from cinnamon was Spirit actually said abundance frequency. And I do know that in spell work and any kind of like green witchery or kitchen witchery, cinnamon is used to symbolize and to call in or to manifest abundance. So that tracks, that makes sense. And we could be called to use cinnamon, the frequency of it, or the actual spice to call in that alignment to the manifestation of wealth or abundance. Now, they also said additional upgrades, and I wasn't quite sure what they were talking about there in regard to cinnamon. They're telling me right now it's about the frequency. They're showing me cinnamon as a portal. Oh, I never would have. What? Yeah, it's like a cinnamon doorway for whatever reason. The cinnamon acts as a portal. It's an opener, basically. It opens your manifestation. They're saying Manipura. I think that's solar plexus. One sec. Yeah, that's solar plexus. I would say, because we're talking about senses and taste and abundance, that it could also relate to the sacral chakra, but they did say Manipura, and that's the solar plexus. Okay, so I think it's a bit of both. I'm starting to see the relation between cinnamon and the solar plexus because they're both sort of a fiery energy. Cinnamon is a warming spice. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Spirit, for showing me that. And they're talking about, interesting. On Google right now, since I pulled up Manipura, let's look at it. It says, also known as the solar plexus. Yeah, it's the navel chakra in the stomach. It's an energy center in the body that is associated with self-esteem, digestion, and metabolism. I know all of that, but I didn't see the connection between the digestion. So maybe because cinnamon is a spice that we digest. I do know that it can help with blood sugar regulation as well for people who have like unstable blood sugar. This could be a literal message, but I've learned to take everything that Spirit brings through me as symbolic, because 9 times out of 10, it's symbolic. And even if it is literal, it's also symbolic. So always interpret things as symbolic first, and then see how it unfolds, if it applies literally or not. Okay, so additional upgrades to the frequency. Maybe this is also talking about memory recall, digestion of events. I'm also hearing memories are stored after our brain sort of processes them and integrates them, and senses integrate or are stored in different areas in the brain. The more pathways that you have, the more senses that are involved in a memory, the stronger the neural pathways to get to and retrieve that memory will be. And our sense of smell and our sense of taste are strong senses, and so we can store those memories. Okay, I'm not going to harp on too much about that, but they are saying additional upgrades, and they're just showing me the frequency and cinnamon acting as like a gateway to that. So the next theme, which is related to the cinnamon, and I've talked about it a bit, was flavors. They were showing me tasting and senses. Again, references to identifying the substance of something through the taste of it, i.e. like the ingredients or the location. The reference they showed me was wine tasting, identifying, oh, it's from this region, it was from this year, it's got this ingredient to it. So it's kind of like being able to retrieve a memory based on the senses. And maybe there's some kind of like a sensory recall effect that can help you in remembering something from the past or in remembering something that you're learning now. I remember learning in psychology, and my psych professor was so cool. He was like, you can bring that thing to class. Like if you chew gum while you're studying and watching my lectures and reviewing your notes, and then you chew that same gum while you're taking the test, you're more likely to recall the information accurately. And he said that he had a student who one time actually brought a candle. Oh, that's another reference. That's another synchronicity. I'll write that down. Candle and flame. But anyway, there was a kid who brought a scented candle to class, and he would study with that candle at home, and then he brought it to the exam. And normally they would have been like, no, you can't do that. But the professor was like, yeah, because I taught you that. So like, go ahead. And it works. It works. It can improve your scores. So maybe this is the upgrade that we're talking about here. Testing and tasting. But they also showed me a reference to overstimulation of taste and senses. The example was trying too many things too quickly and then losing the ability to discern between them. It's like you need time, you need palate cleanser. If you throw too much at your senses too quickly, they'll get overwhelmed and then they can't really tell the difference, and you're not able to discern, you're not able to categorize or quantify, which was the example that they were showing me. It's funny that scented candle came up in this particular reference because they were showing me scented candles, but I didn't know what the correlation was. I didn't know why they were showing them to me. They showed me references to scented candles being toxic and giving off these fumes that are not good for breathing. They showed me references to scented candles as like a comfort thing. So I don't know. It's tied in here, obviously, because that reference came up. So next, they were showing me black and white and zebras and skunks. And again, these are black and white animals. A lot of zebras. Skunks started coming up in the last couple of days, but zebra has been going on for about a week and a half now in terms of these repeating patterns that show that the spirit's been showing me. And black and white to me can speak about polarity. Oh, that's interesting. They just said shades of a color, because black and white are shades, not color. And then as they said shades of a color, they were showing me different colored birds flocking together, like birds of a feather flock together. But shades, not color. I'm seeing window shades now. And they're showing me them opening and closing, and they're saying binary sequence. It's almost like communicating, opening and closing the shades, light, dark, as they're saying SOS. Okay, what is that called? Morse code. Binary signal, Morse code, light and dark. Communication non-verbally came up in the last reading, and several of the last messages were connected to that as well. So this feels relevant to that too. Yeah, so I wrote down polarities, patterns, and protection techniques. And here's why I associated protection techniques to these syncs is because the zebra, the reason that it's striped like that, if it stands alone, it's like a freaking target because it's standing out completely from the other colors in the environment of the Sahara or wherever it lives, right? But if you throw a bunch of zebras together in a herd and they all kind of clump together like that, because the pattern kind of blurs all together, it seems like it's one big black and white blob. And you can't really tell which one is an individual zebra until it's separated. And that's how they defend themselves, is by sticking together. And that was a message that came up in the last reading as well. It was like safety in numbers. Okay. Now the skunk, obviously, its defense mechanism is to spray. And Spirit said stripes as warning. They said stripes as warning, and they're showing me those blinds opening and closing again. Stripes as warning. Warning signal, right? SOS. They just said that. That's a warning signal. Save our souls. And they're saying something about sailors. And that goes to another reference that we have over here, which we're going to talk about. And the last reading, they were showing me symbols of the lighthouse, and we were talking all about the lighthouse. And then we got the oyster and the pearl cards. Yeah, these are connected because they're both protection messages. It's kind of like we're elaborating on that theme or that energy. Stripes as warning. I'm just going to free associate for a second. So give me a sec here. Let me think about this. Patterns on the road, stripes. You stay within the boundaries or within that so that you can stay on track. Black and white are easily differentiated from each other because they're so opposite. You can really see in contrast. Contrast could be part of this as well. Being able to see the pattern through the contrast. Okay, yeah, patterns of contrast. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, they're saying differences and similarities in polarity. Okay, and binary coding again. The next message, actually, let's come back to that. Let's go to the connection to sailors. They were showing me siren, and it's interesting because the theme of siren initially came up as an archetype. Actually, I'm going to write that down. The archetype of the siren. I feel like we're going to look that one up, but traditionally, mythologically, sirens are mermaids. They sing, they call sailors to their doom. But I was also seeing the word summoning. They were showing me the word summoning. So the siren, yes, it does. It summons. And I heard calling something in a hurry. Actually, they're correcting me. I wrote calling something in, but what they actually said was calling it in a hurry. Calling it in a hurry. And then it was interesting because they were showing me ambulance sirens, and it took me a couple of days to put together the fact that siren and siren are the same word, but they mean different things. Like the siren on an ambulance is a loud noise and a flashing light. Oh yeah, flashing lights that allow us to get out of the way because they're in a hurry. They need to get to where they're going because it's an SOS call. Okay, we're putting it together. It's slowly coming together. I'm seeing the connections. Whereas the siren as the mermaid is seen as a negative thing where it calls sailors off of their path. And I was just talking about the roads, like the patterns, the lines that keep you going in the direction you need to go on the road or on track. And if the lighthouse is part of this too, it's like if you're heading towards the lighthouse because you're trying to make land and this siren call, this temptation, if you will, starts to pull you off track. Maybe that's when the ambulance or the defense mechanism or the protection comes in. Helpers, I'm hearing helpers. And they were saying something about caretakers as well in the lighthouse message, caretakers of the light, helping to keep the light bright within the self. And they did. Oh, right. The solar plexus chakra did come up in that reading as well. It was in the book of the animal spirit guide book. Okay. Yeah. The light within the self. Oh my God. I just looked at my freaking shirt. I didn't even, I wore this to bed last night. It's early. I just had my coffee. I like to get things going while my brain is fresh in the early morning, but I didn't realize that I'm wearing it has a tongue on it. The 40 Licks tour. Okay. And we're talking about flavors and taste. Spirit does this with me a lot. They'll have me pick a shirt with a particular theme on it, and I don't realize it until later. Like I remember the other day I was wearing a Queen shirt, and they were showing me Queen references as well. I didn't put it together at the time. They were showing me Phoenix stuff. I wore a shirt with a Phoenix on it. Like I don't realize it's an unconscious thing, but I do choose my clothes intuitively. So anyway, the other thing that they said here with the siren was that they gave me the word simulation. And I wrote a question mark next to it because I was like, what? I mean, obviously, I know this reality is an illusion in a way. It's a form of a simulation. And there's multiple like artificial timelines and organic timelines, and technically they're all simulations in their own way. So there could be something about that, or stimulation could be, if I just add a T to it, simulation, stimulation, because we were talking about flavors and senses. And part of the simulation may be that you interpret senses differently than someone else. Like that's why people have different sense of taste, sight, feeling. Like we all experience this reality differently and extremely subjectively. That's why there's no kind of like across the board, this is what this tastes like, because everyone's going to experience it differently. But there are common themes. And it's a spectrum, black to white, the spectrum. So anyway, something about a simulation and the siren archetype. Let's actually look up the siren archetype together. Okay, well, it's giving me stuff to do with like fashion. That's not what I meant. I meant it more as like a mythological archetype, but let's read this anyway. The siren archetype is a powerful, seductive, and magnetic woman who is unapologetic and follows her own path. Sirens are often depicted as free and authentic beings who represent adventure and change. Siren archetype traits, powerful. Sirens are said to have a lot of sexual energy and power. This is talking to me about the root and sacral chakra as well. So we're really talking about these lower three centers right now. Magnetic, sirens are said to be very attractive and can trigger a primal neurological response. Magnetism, calling it in a hurry, neurological response. Remember, I meant to say memory, remember. A member of the tribe, calling a member of the tribe in. Because I'm thinking about like those birds of a feather, the zebras. Protecting one another, Unapologetic, sirens are said to move with the full force of their desire and know their power. Free, sirens are said to follow their own paths and live by their own rules. Adventurous, sirens are said to represent adventure and change. Okay, now in the archetype mythologically, Greek mythology, sirens were female human-like beings with alluring voices, could be throat chakra in there too, who lured sailors to their death. That's what I was saying. It's like there's some kind of a temptation trying to maybe pull you off your path. This could be the shadow and the light side. Oh, it clicked, black and white, shadow and light. So there's a shadow side to every archetype. And there's a light side to every archetype, and we embody both. We have the capability of embodying both. We can shift where we vibrationally match to on that spectrum. We can move from the shadow archetype into the light by integrating the shadow, by understanding it and bringing it to awareness. This is the process of individuation. And who better to analyze archetypes than Carl Jung, the founder of Synchronicities and the unconscious realm, the archetypes within it, and the collective. Okay, so this is what we're seeing here then. Let me look up what Carl Jung had to say about it then, since he's coming up. Carl Jung considered the siren to be a form of the anima, or soul, with a female form. He believed that archetypes are the foundation of our instinctive behaviors. Jung interpreted the mermaid as an anima and an alchemical metaphor for the unconscious and the process of becoming conscious, light and dark, opening the blinds, closing the blinds. But there's some kind of a sequence or a pattern. And in a simulation, everything is binary. That's the coding that makes up the system. So archetypal imagery can help us identify, express, and explore complex emotions and experiences. The phrase siren's call is used to describe any seductive tempest. I almost wanted to say tempest. It says temptation. Tempest. And they were showing me stuff to do with the Odyssey as well. I don't know if that's related or not, but it's connected because it's kind of like all Greek mythology. The phrase siren's call is used to describe any seductive temptation or irresistible allure that can lead to danger or destruction. So the anima meaning the feminine part of a man's personality. Historical or philosophical meaning, the soul, especially the irrational part of the soul as distinguished from the rational mind. Okay, so this could be a part of yourself. Yeah, okay, now they're showing me like tempestuous seas. Oh, that's where they temptation and tempestuous. And the ocean represents emotion. the senses really can influence our emotion and the reactions therein. So if there's a tempestuous emotional state that pulls you off course and causes you to kind of flounder in no man's land, I'm hearing something about no man's land, then the helpers have to come in. And it's like these part of the cell, like in the body, the helpers are the white blood cells. The white blood cells will go and they'll find and attack any foreign substance, anything that takes the body out of its natural state of homeostatic health. And I'm seeing that here. It's like there's parts of your mind or of your soul that are called into action when any part of, I'm hearing the simulation, if any part of the simulation are breached. And the pathway, they're showing me neural pathways again, are logged. Waterlogged or logged as in categorized, written down, recorded. Both. Okay, so if you're trying to remember something and it's waterlogged, meaning it's categorized, recorded, and written down, stored into the memory banks, heavily laden in dense emotions, it's going to distort the ability to work with that memory, or it's going to exacerbate that irrational reaction in a negative sense. Again, we're talking about irrational in the terms of this sort of negative polarity. The positive polarity of that would be being beyond the rational mind, getting outside of the ego. So there's a duality to this. There's a spectrum here. Keep that in mind, literally. Feels like this is being aware, bringing to the conscious mind. This is a bit of shadow work here, basically what we're talking about, to become cognizant of these areas of the self that may pull the self off course, away from what the soul originally intended. I'm hearing enmeshment, and enmeshment is emotional over connection. This is when we codependently intertwine ourselves with someone else's emotions and we can't separate. Now they're showing me that pack of zebras again, when they're all meshed together like that. When they're standing so close together, you can't see. They look like one big blob. Okay, so enmeshment. And again, there's polarity to this, because in the example of the zebras, it's a defense mechanism. And in this emotional example, it can become very unhealthy. And they're saying the words overstimulation. So you may become overstimulated if you're enmeshed with a group of people or even one other person, because not only are you feeling your own emotions, you're also feeling theirs, especially if you're an empath. Yeah, sensory stimulation, sensory overstimulation. And this may make it difficult to store and retrieve memories, right? Because memories can be distorted. They can be accurate or they can be inaccurate. And the memory is notoriously bad for misremembering or miscategorizing things. They're saying misidentification. And now they're showing me somebody saying misidentification, please. Like a border patrol person being like, "Excuse me, miss, can I see your identification?" Miss being a female term, a young female term. And the border feels like security, protection, identification, please. Trying to identify something. Maybe you're trying to identify yourself through the solar plexus, identifying yourself so that you can detach from an enmeshed situation with someone else. Where do you begin and end, and where do they begin and end? Here's something I had to learn the hard way. There's two polarities to oneness. The shadow side of oneness is that you lose all sense of self. And in the unhealthy, unconscious patterns of that, it's really easy to misidentify who you are, what you believe in, what you feel, and how you trust yourself when you're constantly focused on the emotions and the external feedback from other people. This is where codependency comes in, and you just lose yourself. You abandon yourself in that process. It's very painful, and it creates this fragmentation. You see the paradox though? It's like the closer you get in attachment, the further away from yourself you get. Now, on the other side of that polarity is oneness through detachment. So it's ironic because it's the opposite. When you detach and you truly connect with yourself, you bring yourself into wholeness, you know yourself, you're better able to identify when and how to connect in a healthy way rather than just unconsciously attaching to everyone and everything because there's this feeling of insecurity, right? The damaged solar plexus, they're saying damaged solar plexus creates a lot of insecurity, lack of self-trust, indecision. That was a message that was coming up in previous readings. We kept getting the indecision card and choices, decisions. That's all solar plexus. Indecision is a disconnection from the self because you're unaware of that core truth. It's hard to feel who you are, what is right for you, which path is correct. Because if you don't know yourself, you won't know anything else that's going on out in the world or in different dimensions of reality. But by connecting with yourself, you're able to see where there's separation between you and others. And then also to connect more effectively in that way, because you're not coming from connection in this attachment energy. You're coming from connection in its true form. And you're seeing everything from that unified perspective without having to completely blobify yourself and turn into this amorphous nothing. You can still retain the sense of self with the ego. The personal identity is there, and yet you can transcend it at will by connecting with different things. Kitty's meowing for confirmation. So the candle, the flame, I'm hearing way shower, and they're showing me a card in the tea leaf oracle that is the candle card, and it says you will be shown the way. Shown the way shower, shining the light. Again, the candle, I'm hearing something about candle in the wind. Don't be a candle in the wind, easily perturbed by the energies or emotions of others. Don't let other people sway you. Part of this is strengthening this internal relationship with the self and exploring these different archetypes, the anima and animus, these shadow aspects of the self. It's going to help in this integration and individuation process to strengthen the I am, the true I am, not the distorted I am. They're saying disabling the rudder chain. That came up in a previous reading as well. In this context, it's talking about the inability to steer yourself in times of change. I'm hearing in times of change, right? So the siren is calling you to embrace your ability to move and change directions at will and to stay on course rather than to be tempted and pulled off of it because you're unable to decide. That's what the rudder does. It helps to direct the ship. I'm pretty sure anyway. Let's see, just to make sure. Flat piece hinged vertically near the stern of a boat or ship for steering. Yeah, it's for steering. And as I said, steering, it wanted to come out of my mouth as stealing. So where have you been? They were showing me a lot of stuff to do with pirates as well. Okay, so, and pirates, disable the rudder chain. And that's what pirates do, they steal. That's all they do. Well, archetypally. So where were you stealing from yourself by allowing the temptation to override the system? The system being to override, let me say it this way, to override your higher self and your soul's direction and guidance system. That's what I mean by system, the guidance system that's in you, that tells you intuitively, yes, this is the right path. Yes, this is what I need to do. Or no, that's not for me. Or no, that's not me. It allows you to discern. So if that rudder chain is disabled, you're adrift, right? You're a candle in the wind, liable to get blown out or to, they're giving me that quote, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. So this is really about kind of affirming your beliefs, your truth, who you are, standing in your power, being able to trust your higher self and call forth these aspects of self that are protective, that have these inbuilt defense mechanisms that are intended to keep you safe and on track. And part of these are also the archetypes of the caretaker. So you've got the archetypes of like the defender, the siren, the pirate, which is kind of a trickster energy. And then you've got the caretaker, which is kind of like the mother. So lots of these different archetypes to play with, to explore, to expand on, to dive into, getting to the root of some of these patterns within the self that may cause you to waver on your path in regard to choosing things that feel truly aligned with you at soul level. You just feel it in your bones, you know it. So anywhere that there's been doubt, anywhere that there's been confusion, anywhere that there's been temptation that you've settled for, I was going to say succumbed to, but they said settled for, temptation that you've settled for. What is that about? Well, if we're going back to the analogies of the boat and exploring, this is kind of making me think of the New World, filling in the map, right? When back in the day, they hadn't even explored the entire world yet, and they were still filling in those spaces of the map. What a time to be alive that would have been, to explore these uncharted realms, going into the unknown, finding a way to categorize that, to shape that. And settlers is kind of like traveling in a ship from one land, your homeland, to another. They just said something about internment camps, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I will say it because they said it. And if I don't say what they tell me, what channels through, then sometimes I'll hit a brick wall and I won't be able to channel anything else until I say what they brought through. So you're finding your way to a new land, uncharted territory, and you're having to trust the internal compass system of the higher self, the soul, and the intuition. This is what's guiding or directing this force. And the way to do that is to keep those fires lit, to keep that light bright within the self, to really know thyself and all the different layers of the self. Because if you only know one part of yourself, you're kind of missing a lot of pieces there. You have to know all these different layers of the self. And the law of one is that you are everything. So there's a lot to know, a lot to explore, a lot of uncharted territory that still needs to be discovered. I think that's pretty much the message here. It's knowing yourself so that you can identify which direction you're going, staying on track, being provided resources or providing resources for yourself that allow you to stay safe and true to course. And let's see, shark, since we're talking so much about ocean themes and these archetypes of, the sea, we have the shark here. Take care, or there will be a loss of material wealth. So this is maybe there's temptation to spend or to do things in certain ways that really don't serve you. Let me see what else. What else did we get here? The bat, take care. Shit, they both say take care. Enemies are working against you. Okay, so this has been a theme that's been coming up. Take care, taking care. Oh my God, look at that. And it's so that you can see in the dark. Sharks also remind me of being able to sense, being able to feel, being able to discern. When all the lights go out, where do you turn? That's what Spirit just said. When all the lights go out, where do you turn? It's reminding me of Lord of the Rings, the light of, what is it called? Lady Galadriel. Is that who it was? Well, let me just look it up. Lady Arundel's star is used in the Phial of Galadriel, which is given to Frodo by the elf queen Galadriel. The light of the star is the symbol of hope for elves and men. And she says, let it be a light for you when all other lights go out. So hope, faith, love, self-compassion. These are our tools. These are what help us take care to prevent any kind of loss, whether it's material or spiritual. And it prevents any kind of source, I'm hearing source of energy working against you, because it's coming from within the self. And the more you know the self, the more you understand these energies, even if they are presenting as external forces, either non-physical or as people working against you. It doesn't matter, because they're all versions of you representing that archetypal energy. And the more you reflect on that archetype within yourself and integrate it, the less effect anything or anyone outside of you will have. They cannot damage you. They cannot take from you without your consent. And the more you bring something into consciousness, the less consent you give unconsciously. We have the basket, recognition and reward for merit. Okay, here's another thing. Let me talk about this before I pull the last card that I've got there. I've noticed a pattern. When you're on the verge of a breakthrough, that's usually when, you hit up against that attack energy, right? Like that's when we start to experience external attacks or spiritual attacks. It's because it's like boss energy. You're playing a video game, you're about to get to the next level, you have to beat the boss. In this case, it's not about beating anything outside of you. It's about understanding the power that you've given it within yourself. And as a part of yourself, understanding it, you get that breakthrough. You can also see this as a good thing. Like I've trained myself to, anytime that I'm going through any intense spiritual attack or like there's a lot of chaos going on in my life, I'm like, this means that I am about to majorly level up. And they're bringing me back to the additional upgrades that they channeled through in regard to cinnamon. The cinnamon's protective, they just said as well. Cinnamon's protective, and they're showing you can almost use it like salt. Mixture of salt and cinnamon as like a cleansing or as like a protection for the home. Anyway, so I've trained myself to see these types of patterns as a good thing because it's actually a symptom of the upgrade or of the level up. I mean, it's not, but it is. It's like you've attracted this kind of opposition energy because these forces are seeing psychically that you're about to level up. And so they're like, oh, let's try and stop that. But if you just reframe it, the perspective is like, oh, thanks for letting me know I'm about to level up because I wasn't really aware of that. But now that you're attacking me for it, like, boom, got this. The basket. Okay, we have teardrops, great personal sorrow. I think that this is what has been influencing the outcome because if we have a lot of sorrow, they're saying teardrops of a clown. If we have a lot of sorrow, we're not going to be able to recognize ourselves because we're holding that frequency inside and it keeps that fragmentation there. Let me see. I want to clarify on the teardrops from the coffee cup oracle. Tea leaves and coffee cup oracle. These ones have been calling me a lot lately in the readings. Tea leaf and coffee. Tea and coffee. We have the horse with freedom and action, and we have the witch with magic and curse. Okay, so teardrops of a clown, seen as happy, meant to perform as happy, presenting a happy face, but feeling the sorrow inside. And they're saying it leaves you vulnerable to attack in the sense that you're more easily swayed because, as I said in one of my previous videos, if the water gets inside the boat, then the boat sinks. What I mean by that is that nothing negative outside of you can affect you unless you let it inside or unless it already has a vibrational resonance or magnetic match to something inside. So if you're holding on to great sorrow, then that sorrow can be used against you. And even this I see as a blessing rather than a curse because it will expand it until the point that you really have to face it. You really have to deal with it. Making something bigger is not a bad thing, even if it's a bad thing in the way that we experience it or perceive it subjectively, because to make it bigger makes it easier to see. And if it's easier to see, it's easier to deal with. But this is the empowered perspective, right? This is the empowered stance. This is not the victim self of, oh, there's energy or malevolence or people or things outside of me that have power over me. No, that's false. That's not true. It becomes true if you allow it to be true because you're a divine creator being, and what you believe you will manifest, you will create, you will use your will in that disempowered way. And that's fine. You can totally do that. That's the law of free will. You can use it for good or for bad or for whatever you want. That's the point. That's the freedom. That's the freedom. So freedom can be a bit of a double-edged sword. But if you understand the way that this works, you can stay in alignment with your higher self, with the truth of who you are, what you need, and what is truly in your greatest and highest good when it comes to being in this state of power. So no curse or magic or witch or anything can ever have power over you. Stop believing that. Stop seeing someone else as more powerful than you because it's not true. They are you. Find that part of the self that feels more comfortable being a victim because it's less work. Identify that in the darkness, and you will reweave the basket. The energetic field is woven like a network. And when that is in integrity, meaning it's whole, it can hold all of this abundance. It can hold all of this vital force energy. And it's a protective thing from the inside out. So digging into these layers of the self that hold this fear, paranoia has also been a message and a theme. It's an energy they've been showing me. Paranoia is unwarranted fear. That really, they're showing me the energy of paranoia kind of takes on a life of its own and starts to create. It's like you fulfill your own prophecy. You create that which you fear because you're giving it energy. Where you focus, your energy is directed, and you will create. So understanding your magnetic being and what you're calling in or attracting, because especially if it's a pattern, if this is something that happens a lot and you can't escape this energy of people working against you, you've got to look at why. Maybe it's a past life pattern. Maybe you were, you were harmed or betrayed in a past life and you haven't gotten over that yet, and it needs to be grieved, it needs to be healed, it needs to be understood. You need to shift into a different vibration by looking at that energy, by feeling those emotions, by understanding that sensory input, because otherwise you're going to keep attracting or manifesting more of it. This whole process is about restoring the integrity of your soul. That puts you in your power, and this creates the magic. Okay, let's get a final closing card. Angel Aura Quartz, lighten up on the bottom, but let's get a final closing card from the crystal deck. Oh, we've got a bunch here. Let me put those back in. There was 3, and I just want one. There we go. Rhodochrosite, remember your worth. Yeah, remember who you are. Remember your power. Remember your worth. Heal your heart. Grieve these tears so that they no longer control you or sink you from the inside out. Have compassion for yourself and others. If people try to attack you, this is connected to your purpose, Moonstone, live your purpose. When people try to attack me, I feel sorry for them because I know that they're in a lower vibration and they're not in their power. I know that I'm more powerful than those who seek to harm me because they are fundamentally in a lower vibration to want to attack the self that way, because I am them. They are me. And so I have compassion for that part of myself that is lashing out from that lack of consciousness, that lack of awareness, that limited vibrational state. And yes, they have power to use certain aspects of that vibration, and they always have that free will to be able to direct it how they want to. But the power that we hold as individuals and through this awareness is the ability to transmute. And I'm not going to transmute anything on behalf of them. I'm just going to integrate and understand it within myself, which automatically shifts the vibration because we're one. So remember your true power. Remember how worthy you are of support if you need it. That it's okay to grieve, but it's not okay to repress these emotions, these feelings, these senses, because that can cause a splitting of the self, and that can result in holes in the system that will attract, and it will attract it, people, energies, or things that will take advantage of that. But again, see it from the perspective of this spiritual lesson and this growth and maturity. The wisdom is that those experiences draw you to where there are holes. So you can thank the people who attack you. You can thank the energies that try to limit your power. You can thank the energies that try to keep you down, because they're showing you very clearly where there's a leak in the boat. And you can trace it back, follow the pattern, shore that up. Thank you for helping me to step more fully into my power. I will leave it at that. I hope this message was helpful. Just take what resonates and leave the rest, but let this sink in. If it was triggering, look at the trigger. If you're already aware of this, fantastic. It means that you're already starting to move this energy, to shift this energy, move beyond it, to break through, to level up, to have these upgrades, to step into the abundance frequency. So take it and be your best self for your greatest and highest good and the greatest and highest good of all, because we're all one. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my work here on the Divine Channel. Feel free to check out my other channel, It's Tarot and Beyond, where we do pick a card readings, and I have memberships there. If you would like to continue coming along for this ride, stick around, subscribe here and or there, and we'll see you in the next reading.